right, today's date is July 29th, 2019. My name is Daniel Bradfield, and I am the Orange County Regional History's oral historian, and with me is
Alexandra Chichero, I am One Orlando Oral History Archivist.
And today we are interviewing
Angel Rivera Morales, artist, barber, and cultural gesture.
I like that last title. That's really cool. This interview is being conducted as a part of our effort to collect interviews with the Puerto Rican arts, or Puerto Rican Collective Arts Diaspora. Did I get the title right?
It's Puerto Rican artist in Central Florida.
Okay. This interview is being conducted at the New Concept Barber and Art Gallery in Orlando, Florida. So to start off, who's the oldest family relative you've ever met?
Well, I got to know my mother's grandparents. They go back to the late 1800s and the beginning of the 20th century. That is Julia Sola and Cristobal Contreras. I got to meet them, so I would say that they were the eldest relatives that I have knowledge of. They descended from Spaniards and Indians mostly, and my grandmother, that is my mother's mom, is Angela Contreras, and she was married to a descendant of slaves. That was my grandfather, Salvador Morales Castrillo. But then from my father's part, I have my grandfather. That is he grew up in Barranquitas, in the center of Puerto Rico, in the mountains, and he was married to my grandmother. That is Luisa Torres. She was descendant from Spaniards that used to have haciendas in the south of Puerto Rico, in the town of Patillas.
That was your great-grandparents, right, that you were talking about?
From the part of my mother, I get to meet my great-grandparents. From the part of my father,
Yeah.
I have my two grandparents, and I met my great-grandmother, that was Ramona Berrios.
Did they ever tell any stories about what their life was like growing up, or anything that you remember them talking about?
As I remember, they lived through the transition from the Hispanic government to when United States invaded Puerto Rico. As they were rough times. It was in the early 20th century, and all they had that they could retain was the land. And in those years, to be able to survive, they had to trade the piece of lands that they have for groceries and stuff to survive. And that was the way that my grandmother was raised. Now, my mother and my father, they were born in the 1950s, and it was a different time, but still they were rough times. You know, they had no TV at home. My grandfather, he was from the part of my mother. He was one of the first market. Like, he had a little grocery store in the vicinity of Caimito in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And he was descendant of slaves, and he was one of the first people in our neighborhood that had this grocery store when people could come and get their groceries, and sometimes, you know, he even did credit with them. So the whole neighborhood that I grew up in, they were very popular. At least my grandfather and my grandmother, I used to work with him in the grocery store. So my early years, I was raised mostly into that place, because my mother is a social worker, and my father used to be a xerographic technician for Xerox company. Most of the time they were working, and I got to be where my grandfather used to have the grocery store, and I was raised there, very familiar with everything that was going on in the neighborhood and all that.
Did he still own the grocery store when you were
No.
alive, or he sold it?
Yes, no, the grocery store was working until 1995. Then he closed it. My uncle managed to reopen it, and he used to work in it until 2006. That's when I graduated from college, and I went back to live in the neighborhood. I was in the early years of my relationship with my wife right now, and I went to live there. What they used to be the grocery store in the first level of the place, and then I started my barber shop in the same place where used to be the grocery store, and I had my art studio there. So that was my place to develop for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012, before I moved here to Orlando, Florida.
So going back a little bit, do you talked about what your parents did for a living. Growing up, is your family religious?
Oh yes, oh yes. We were mostly related to the Episcopal Church.
So how were you guys, doing activities and stuff with them during the week? I mean, did you just go to church? How would you spend your free time as a family?
Well, yes, on Sundays we used to go to the church mostly during my early years, and then we traveled to different places in the island. Those were very nice years to be a kid. There was they were the 80s, and there's a lot of memories related to that. We used to see all the movies that were coming out by that time, and we went out to play in the woods or sports, and I was really in touch with everything that was going on around, and yes, as a family, we did a lot of, memorable things together.
Do you have a favorite sport?
Well, I used to play basketball
Oh.
when I was a teenager. Yes.
So how did you get interested in art?
Well, since I was a kid, I used to draw. I started drawing Disney cartoons or comics or that those were times that where the comic strips were very popular. So we used to have them, collect them. So I started drawing like that, and then they came the graffiti period, like where everybody was doing graffiti. So I started doing graffiti, and that's like until my 12, 13 years old. I was a lot into drawing. Then I stopped. I went more outside. I was always on the street or playing basketball. But then I went back to drawing when I was 18 years old, and I had the opportunity to get enrolled in the University of Puerto Rico. I decided to study art.
I should have asked this earlier. When were you born?
I was born in 1981.
All right. So you go to college, you start studying art. What do you do? Are you working at the time you were going to school?
Yes, I started working as a barber when I was like 15 years old. I used to work in my parents' home for a while, and then I went to work in a barber shop in Rio Piedras. That is it's a town where the university is located. And since I come from a neighborhood that is closer to the mountains and stuff, everybody has to go to Rio Piedras or San Juan because there is more resources there. So I used to go to Rio Piedras to do my high school, but then I dropped off from high school, and I started working in a barber shop in Rivera. I was there for a year, and then I started studying at college in the University of Puerto Rico. Meanwhile, in my free time, I kept working as a barber, always. I never stopped.
Did you have to do any certifications or anything to be a barber?
Yes, you have to have a license.
Okay.
Yes.
What does like the licensure entail?
It's like that one that you see there.
Oh, but I mean like work experience. What do you have to do?
Oh, you have to go take a course for like a year, do some theory and practice. Most of it I did it in the barber shops. That's where you learn most. Working with older barbers, learning from them. So I would say that mostly my experience was developed like that.
Why did you start working as a barber? Did you have an interest in it? Was it something?
Well, I remember that by that time period, being a barber was very popular because the reggae music was developing, and everybody wanted to be in shape. So most kids my age, they tried to do barbering at some point. For me, it came just natural. I think one of my great grandfathers was a barber, and then when my grandfather used to have the grocery store, he used to rent a space for a barber shop there. So when I was a kid, I used to see them working, and it came really natural.
With that like family business, did you do any work for that business when you were staying with your
I
grandparents?
used to work in the grocery store when I was a kid in my free time or before I went to school. So yes, I was always involved into that kind of business where you have to deal with people and all that. Yes.
What kind of stuff would you do for it?
Field like the corn for the people that have chickens and all that, or the ice bags, or just rearrange the stuff in the grocery store, or at some point helping with dealing with customers. Yes, I remember I did all that. When I was a kid, I used to go with my grandfather to deliver some goods to neighbors and all that, so I still have those memories.
Any memorable stories or anything from the grocery store or your years in Puerto Rico you want to share?
Well, I always remember that people there were like family, that there is a relationship between all the neighbors. Everybody takes care of each other. When somebody dies or someone is suffering, everybody suffers with them. When something bad happens in the neighborhood, you can feel the atmosphere. It's like it's a humble neighborhood, but everybody lives very in touch with each other. It was really nice to have that experience because that teaches you a lot about how to see yourself as a part of society. There's a lot of stories that I could recall, but I would need a lot of time to to be able to share them.
We can take your time if there's anything that you want to share.
Yes. Well, I can say that my grandfather, he had a reputation of being he was a special character. People remember him because he didn't let he would argue with people like if they tried to come and be smart, too smart with him, like to be slick. And he was very sharp. People used to remember me as his grandson, and they would identify like, oh, you were the grandson of. They would call him Salvita, and they said, you're the grandson of Salvita, and they would tell me stories about things that he did in the grocery store. Like for example, he used to sponsor one of the baseball teams in the area, and they always came back saying that they win the game, and he will give them free beer and stuff. And he was surprised because they always win, until he asked somebody and said, no, they never win. And he went to see one of the games, and he was cursing all the way around. things like that. But people remember him because he used to contribute a lot to the neighborhood. And when I was growing, I remember a lot from his character and how he was. And when I was in the same position that he was, then I understood why he was like that. You know, sometimes you have to be sharp, because if not, you know, you're gonna be regretting it.
You mentioned that you do graffiti. So what, how did you like pick designs? How did you start doing it? Where did you start doing it? Stuff like that. Oh, let me go this real quick. Yeah. So like I said, with your graffiti, where would you do it? How did it develop? That kind of thing.
Well, I mostly developed it sketching with a pencil on the notebook. And I started doing letters as I saw in the 80s. Then I tried to develop my own style. But I mostly did it on notebooks. I even did some spray paint on the basement of the same grocery store. And now it's funny that you mention it, because a couple of days ago, my mother went there and she took pictures of one of the graffitis I did when I was a kid. And she sent it to me over the phone, and she said, "Look, it's still here," So that was nice, but I cannot say that I was developed as a urban artist like most do, because when I did it for a while, but then I left it. I didn't do that much until I went to University of Puerto Rico, and when I started studying art, I went right into drawing more academic, and then I started as a painter, also more academic, and then I went straight into abstract painting, and that's the thing that I've been doing for almost 20 years.
Okay. All right, I think that's a good place to pause to eat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we were talking about your professional life in Puerto Rico. So being a full-time barber and still doing your art, how did you kind of manage those two, basically full-time jobs?
Yes, well, when I was in Puerto Rico, as a barber shop, you have the particularity that some days are slower than others. Like, for example, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, there's not that many customers that come to you those days. So when I was there, that I managed to have my barber shop and the studio in the same place. You just had to go through a door, and there was the studio. So I in my free time, I could go there and keep doing my artworks and stuff. And then when a customer came in, I just washed my hands and came back to do the haircut. And I was like that the whole day. And then after I closed the shop, the barber shop, I could get again into the studio and be there for a couple of hours. During the last 4 years that I lived there, my wife, she was born and raised in a town called Barranquitas. That's in the mountains, but at the southern part of the island. So my wife and kids, we moved to Barranquitas for the last 4 years, and I used to travel every day back and forth for an hour. So what I used to do is that some days I even stayed where I had the studio and the barber shop. Like, let's say Fridays and Saturdays, they were both busy days, and I had to be back early working. So I would stay there from one night to the other day, and then I use the night to work on my artworks. And that's what I did for the last 3 or 4 years that I lived in Puerto Rico.
So what attracted you to abstract art?
That's an interesting question. Well, when I started developing my art, I had a tendency towards expressionism. So the first couple of pieces that I did that were like objective painting. I did some portraits or landscapes. They were all very expressionistic, and especially the portraits, they were not pretty. They were like the people that I had around, that they have the scars of life and the struggle of that. You can see, the images were like that. People used to say, "Oh, nobody's gonna buy that." So I figured out how to put all that anger, the suffering, the emotion that I wanted to express in my work. I just twisted. I went on to the abstract world because I found more freedom. You know, it was like jumping from the abyss into a different world. You know, now I was not reflecting society. I was inventing my own universe, and for me it was very fulfilling to go into this research. You know, I started working with landscapes like by 2006 or 2007, but they were like more oniric landscapes, like something that comes from the dreams. I had the freedom to put all the elements together in a way that I didn't have to be attached to laws of physics, or like what is closer or farther, or you know, like I could play with that, and there was freedom in it, and there was something very interesting because I have been doing it for a while, and at some point, you know, what I paint, it needs time, sometimes years, for me to understand it, and for the painting to explain itself, and to be able to get into that world is like attempting to discover a future that is not yet being revealed. I can tell you experience. You know, my first exhibition was called Exégesis del Paisaje Nuestro. That is like exegetic of our landscape or something like that. But exegesis is a word that when you look for the meaning, it talks about the interpretation of the Holy Scriptures, what is hidden behind the Holy Scripture. And what I was attempting to do is use the landscape to understand a hidden message that lies beyond or below what we see. The other art show that I did by 2009 was called Revelations. The 2010 was called Prophetic Dreams. And all of them were like huge abstract landscapes. And finally, with everything that was going on with Puerto Rico over the last couple of years, even the hurricanes and stuff, I could see the videos. My paintings were there. You know, it was a huge impact on me that I didn't want to do nothing. You know, most artists, they started working around the topic of the hurricane and the devastation and stuff, but I didn't want to. You know, it was, for me, it was like I was so shocked that happened, and the relationship that I had with my work that I have been doing for the last couple of years, that it was hard for me to overcome that feeling. You know, so, but at the same time, that kind of work expresses like whatever what I want to say, I can use color and freedom of forms, and I let it there for everybody to see and interpret it the way they want it. So my paintings, they are not just about me. They are about the spectator. How does he feels, what he can see, because it's a connection from a visual aspect of something that it has been put in there, that is just painting and color, with your inner thoughts. You know, so it's like a poem that has been is there for you to complete that image, that message. That's why I always leave it open. I don't really articulate the whole picture in a way that is decoded. I always want people to complete it, to tell me what they see or what they think, because sometimes the spectator tells me something about my artwork that I didn't even see it in the first place.
Do you have any stories related to that where somebody has revealed something about your artwork that you didn't see initially?
Yes, I remember there's a story when I first came to Florida. There was this friend that I left some paintings in his house, and one of the paintings, the title that I put it by that time was a victim of a brief romance. A couple of years later, I came back to Florida, and he showed me the painting broken, and he explained me that he had left his family to go living with this lady, and then there was an argument and stuff, and she just got the painting and she ripped it apart. So the title "Victim of a Brief Romance" just came together like that. Things like that happen all the time.
So you mentioned that you moved with your family to like a more mountainous part of Puerto Rico. Why did you guys decide to move?
Well, the place that I was raised in, where my grandfather used to have the grocery store, even though it's a beautiful place, it's really close to the metropolitan area, and we are very we are very exposed to all things in society, crime, drugs. So I was raised there, and I could manage to survive. But at the same time that I loved that place, I wanted a more peaceful environment for my kids. And my wife, she was more comfortable there. She has all her family there. For that, so even for me, it was easier, to come, work, being in touch with my place, but at the same time have some place where I can just go away for a while and take a break. So that's why we decided to move to the mountains, and then I would travel back and forth.
When you how did your kind of family life change when you guys moved to the mountains? Like, what did you start doing in your spare time and stuff with the kids?
Well, during the weekends mostly, we had the time to go around more more into the forest, the rivers. I got more in touch with her family. It was a different way of life, Not that in the neighborhood that I grew up was that different. It was not that different, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful up there, and it's a whole natural environment, that has its own beauty. And for me as an artist, it was, it was really fulfilling. I would go to the backyard of my mother-in-law and just with a machete to clean the place, and there was a beautiful mountain landscape that I used to sit down in the afternoon and just watch it until the sunlight came down, and then I would go home, and the breeze is way colder there. It's a different style of living.
So why did you decide to move out of Puerto Rico?
Well, by 2010, things started to get a little harder for us. The business that I was been developing, it was like you kept pushing, and there's a lot of things that keep pushing you back. And I always wanted to do my master's degree. That was one of the main reasons that we left. I have applied to a university in North Carolina, and when that didn't happen, I said, okay, the only way to be able to achieve that is if you move there to the United States, and being a resident there, maybe you will have a better opportunity of getting into a master's degree. The thing is that when we moved here, I came first and then brought my wife and 2 kids. And just the process of getting established here have taken me so long that I haven't been able to enroll in a master degree class. But at the same time, life have given me the opportunity to develop all these projects. And for me, this is like a master degree. What we are doing here, putting together Puerto Rican culture for other people to see it, to learn from it. At some point, I know that I can manage to go into a program, but for now, I feel very grateful to be part of everything that has been going on, and with just that, it's like maybe I am not going into the academics, but I am already doing it in the field. So when I have time to go into a program, I already have my project.
So when you decided to leave, what was Puerto Rico like at that time? You mentioned it was harder, but what had changed over your life there?
Well, I could say that by that time things were getting like a little economic crisis was tightening. There was already corruption there, so you could see a lot of people leaving already. You could see other people struggling and working hard and still being in the same place for years and years. And for me, I was only 30 years old. My kids were just like 3 to 5 years old. So I told myself, this is the time to leave. If you don't do it now, you're not going to be able to do it. So Puerto Rico was not that different from what we see today. The only difference is that after I came, people kept coming to the United States and the island. The population decreased a lot, and then when Maria struck, then there was a lot of changes there. People worked hard to help each other, but after a year, they feel that nothing is changing, and the collective feeling is like we are stuck in the same situation. That now has, I would say, like a catalytic situation with the overthrow of the government and everything. But this is a situation that has been developing for a lot of years right now. This didn't happen from one day to the other. This is the result of, I would say, 50 or 70 years of the same situation over and over. And young generations, I have to say, they are the ones who have the courage to go for it. Nowadays they are more connected to everything that's going on in the world because of the social media and stuff. So now it's harder to make them believe the lies. The truth finally is over the surface. So I think that's the way it was Puerto Rico when I left, and I think that's the atmosphere that is now.
So do you still have a lot of family and friends that live on the island?
Oh yes, most of them.
Okay.
I have my parents there, family there, most of my friends there. We try to keep in touch. I try to go there at least once in a year. And whenever I go, I feel back at home. I want to stay. It's hard because that you are achieving certain stuff here for the future. But when you see yourself in the future, you always dream of going back and establish there. And my kids, they grow up so fast, and you always wonder, if they would be, well, every summer they go there and they spend the 2 months.
Oh, good.
Yes, there. And when they have to come back, they sad, and it's like you never know where life is going to take you. But I am also really grateful that what this city, Orlando and Central Florida, has offered to us. You know, I have to say that it hasn't been easy, but it's been a place where we have had the opportunity to come and settle down and develop and achieve important things.
So have you, when you arrived here, did you, you know, did you join any like Puerto Rican organizations or find any like local groups or anything? Puerto Rican?
Well, when I got here, yes, I became part of the organization that we formerly had. That was Puerto Rican Art Diaspora of Orlando, but that was something that we created. But before that, I saw that there were other organizations. I have to say that I participated in some of the events. As an artist, I was looking for something else. You know, I was more trying to get my artwork, the artwork of my colleagues, to places like museums, galleries, and I saw that most of the organizations or events that were being developed, they were being done outdoors and were like one-day events. And the way that I learned in the process of being an artist is that art needs time to be appreciated. You know, for someone to look at a work of art and being able to understand it, it needs time. When you do a project, at least you need like a month, you know, because it has a lot of logistic that you need to put together to put that on display, and it needs time to the work to spread out and people come and enjoy it. You know, it's not something that you can go out, do a one-day event, and people are gonna come and feel the whole experience. It's something that needs time.
So why did you pick Central Florida to move to?
Well, when I was about to leave Puerto Rico, I could, you know, I was always in touch with the press and the newspapers and all kinds of, you know, different media releases, and I knew that Orlando was already being like selected as one of the favorite destinations for Puerto Ricans to come. I could feel that this was a place that was about to develop real quick, and the demographics, you know, were growing like very fast, especially for Puerto Ricans, and I could see that if I wanted to do a contribution, this was a good place to start.
So when you first got here, what did you think of the area?
Well, I had come here like 3 times before I came in 2012, so I already had a picture of what it would be when I came here. But nothing prepares you for what you're going to leave when you finally move in. You know, as always, the beginning was hard. It was hard to be by myself alone, just working and trying to find a place. All the doubts or the worries about if it was possible to do it, having my family away, the process of bringing them here, and then the process of them to adapt to the place. They were rough times, but at the same time, there are really good memories that I have from that time. You know, my kids, they were able to go to Disney World. You know, my wife was working there for a while, even though she's a social worker, and now she could manage to get into her field. But the whole experience, you know, as a family, was a test, and at the same time, helped us to overcome a lot of situations that made us stronger.
What was the biggest change from moving from Puerto Rico to here?
Well, I have to say that in Puerto Rico there are first you have your family around. You don't have to worry about certain things. For example, the living, is less expensive. If like a house, you can rent it for $400, $500 for a month, and food, you have it around you. Even when you're in the place you live, there are plantains, everything. You can just grab it and make your food. And here you have to buy everything, and to adapt to that mentality that every month you have to meet up with a lot of bills, a lot of payments, and that you have to like track your mind into that into that system, every month. That's not easy to get into that, and that for me that was one of the hardest things to adapt to. But at the same time, the tranquility, it's a different system of living. Everybody is by themselves. You get home. It's like you have a moment for yourself and your family. There is not a lot of interruptions from the outside, and that's something that it may be helpful for raised kids. But as I said, it's been a whole experience, and you have to take everything, the good and the bad, all together, and make the best that you can do with it.
So when you first got here, where did you start working?
I started working in a barber shop. First at a barber shop. First than the barber shop, I started working in there was a company that used to do screen printing in Altamonte. So I used to go there. I have done screen printing in Puerto Rico, so I knew how to do it. I wanted to try something different from the barber shop. So I started working in this place. I did it for a couple of months, and then I started working in a barber shop. As I said, the versatility or the freedom that you can have as a barber, that you can do your own schedule, all that, made me stay into the barbershop business. There was a barbershop close by in the area in South OBT, and then we helped open another barbershop near our OBT on 528. From that last one, me and my partner went out and we decided that we could do it, that we could achieve something like this. So we got together and we started working toward that goal. Like that was almost 3 years ago, and finally we're here. Thank God.
When you first got here, where did you start living in the area?
The first place that I settled down with my family was Kissimmee.
And have you stayed in Kissimmee all the time?
Yes. My kids started going to Kissimmee Elementary School. They adapted really quick. There was a lot of Hispanic population there. For me, it was a nice place to live. It's a place that I can relate to, and we just stayed there. We at first we lived in a complex, and then we rented a house. But most of them in the same area so far.
How do you think Puerto Ricans are treated in Central Florida generally? Just like your family experience, by people in the community.
Well, I cannot say that it's bad. We have it's always mixed experience. Not everything is like beautiful and wonderful. It's always different situations that they are not like that good, but in general, it's been a good experience. Where this is a southern town, so people are more open to be welcoming, than other places. And since the Hispanic population has grown so much in here, it's like you feel that this is no different than being in a town in Central America or South America, with the difference that we are in the United States, but there is a community feeling, and I think that what's happening in Central Florida in general, it's something that later on is going to be studied and remembered as a phenomenon that happened in the beginning of the 21st century, because this is a place where most Hispanics have chosen as a place to live, and that brings a lot of cultural events, a lot of developing of how would I say, projects like this, and people, that Hispanic people, they are very warm in the way they live. They like to share between each other. They like to go out. They like to party. That's something that is developing right now here in Central Florida. I can't even see that there's a lot of people that are coming from New York and other places, because they say, no, I just got tired from the snow and the cold weather, and they feel like Central Florida is this place where they can, retire or come to live in a more slow-paced.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I imagine Florida and Puerto Rico's climate are pretty similar.
Pretty
Hot.
similar.
Well, yeah, I mean, Puerto Rico is going to be a lot breezier because
Yes.
it's an island. But I mean, it's hot, it's humid.
Yes.
At least somewhere. I mean, you go to New York and it's,
And there is something very interesting, because the story of Puerto Rico and Florida has always been intertwined. One of the first settlements that we have here in San Agustin was by Ponce de Leon, who was the Puerto Rican, one of the first governors that we had back in the time of the Spaniards. So and even before that, as we were talking about a little bit ago, a while ago, that's in Puerto Rico, some of the Indians that used to live there came from Florida. Mm-hmm. So there's always been that kind of relationship between the island and the Caribbean and Florida. I think it's all part of the same, ecosystem.
So we talked about how you managed to keep painting while working full-time as a barber in Puerto Rico. So how did you do it when you moved to the U.S.?
Well, it's a little harder. Yeah, I have to sometimes I have to struggle just to find some time to do my artwork. Sometimes I do it during the night. Sometimes on Mondays, that is my free day from the barber shop. But I also have to manage to find that time apart from the time that I have as a barber and the time that I put into with this kind of projects that I do. So now I'm my family, so it's like it's always something going on. I don't know how I do it, honestly.
Sounds like a lot to balance.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about the idea for the shop that we're currently in. And you mentioned that in your previous shop in Puerto Rico, you had a studio attached. Did you display artwork in your previous barbershop, or is this like a first for you?
Yes, I did, but it was mostly my work.
Okay.
I had the studio. I just bring out the painting from the studio and put it on the wall so people could see them. But I didn't do events like this place. The thing in here was like, as I couldn't find a place where I can do projects and display them, like there was not a place that I could find that I thought that fit the needs of the artist. That's why I said, okay, what if instead of asking for spaces or museums or galleries. What if we have an alternative space so we can develop the projects and at least put them together and bring them to the public, and then after that we can take them somewhere else. It's like a laboratory, you know. And my partner here was eager to go after that, go with me, and he trusts me in that way, so I have to be really grateful for that. What I didn't expect was that the place was going to be a key space for so many artists, you know, because the same way I was feeling, then other artists come from Puerto Rico, they don't know where to start. Other local artists that have been living here for more time, they are already like wanting something else from what they have found in the area. And it's been amazing how every day I have people that call, that they come here, most of them artists, and they want to participate or have their work on display. I have to say that sometimes, you know, the galleries, they want to charge the artists just to put the artwork on display. Me as an artist, I don't agree with that. You know, there is always some expenses that you need to do in order to get a good show. That's one thing. But to charge an artist just to put a painting in the wall, I don't think that's the right procedure, because for an artist it's already hard to invest money, time, knowledge in what we do as an artwork. That's something that we do to share it with the community and to leave a footprint about who we are in society and time. That is already a big commitment. So then just to have to go out, ask for permission to show it, and pay for it. And when that happens, usually the person that handles the place, if he's making money from the artist, he's not going to be eager to sell it. There is no necessity to sell it because he's already making money from the artist. And where does the artist gets into this? You know, we work for free? No. You know, we need to portray the works in a way that people understand their value, and in that way we need to put together shows that document the history of the artist, what they are trying to communicate, in order for people to understand that these are something that is being done for the society, that has a value on itself. And to be able to purchase a work of art is an investment. It's not a way. It's a way of helping the artist, of course, but it's not. We are not beggars. You know, we as artists, we have a necessity to express ourselves and to do a comment about what's going on in history and everything around us. But at the same time, what we do is a piece that has a value on itself, and most of the time it will increase with time. You know, if you look for what are the best ways to invest your money, art, if not the first, is the second one. So for me, it's very important to make people understand that, because if we educate the community, especially the people that have the capacity to purchase artworks, and then they are eager to support the artists, then the artists, if they strive and they do, you know, they do better, they have a better economy on themselves, then they will to contribute more to the society, because the artist is a person that is always trying to give. They are always giving. You know, if you call for help, they will donate an artwork. They will give you a class. They will give a speech. You know, most artists, they are really committed to young generations, so they can learn that there is an opportunity, that doing art, there is so many ways that you can earn a living doing art, but we need to establish that a piece of artwork is a good investment, in order to have a wealthy environment for the artists, so they can keep coming, establishing here, and seeing Orlando as an opportunity to grow.
So I think that's a good transition. How did y'all found the Arts Collective?
Okay, in the beginning, there was one of the artists that came to me and he said that he wanted to do a collective. It was an idea, and we started trying to get some endorsements to put it together. Finally, we got together a group of like 5 artists, and we started developing the project. I traveled to Puerto Rico, and I asked for some advice and help from some of the masters that I have friends in Puerto Rico. They, from the beginning, they were eager to help, and they said that they didn't want nothing in return, but they wanted to make this possible. So it was perfectly as the Pope. Maybe I have to shut it down. I don't know why it's...
I think it's a child. There is a child.
Oh, there is a child there. Oh, yeah, I see
she's
it.
playing.
Yeah, that happens all the time. They walk by, they want to see. It's like...
No.
Oh, okay, so the thing is that we got together. I traveled to Puerto Rico because I understood that a big part of the project was to, at some point, take the project back to Puerto Rico, because there was some artists that that their experience was okay. So they were artists like Mr. Jose Feliciano, that they were born or they were raised in the United States, and they haven't had the opportunity to go and show their work in Puerto Rico, so they could know about them. So I traveled there to ask for an exhibition at Museum of the Americas, and after my trip there, I came back and we kept doing some meetings about how we were going to develop it. At some point, we decided to take it to what they call a 501c3, a non-profit organization, in order to get more sponsorship, and with the goal of growing to at some point have a Puerto Rican museum. But I have to say, that to keep that going on is not really easy, especially between artists, because artists, they all of them, they have different ways of thinking and approaches, and at some point it was harder to keep it together as an organization, so we had to decide to close it in order to keep the collective show moving on, because it was a more dynamic way, so we can focus only on the show, that it was the important part, and leave the organization part for after, if it happens, because to grow you have to start from the ground, and if you have not accomplished the first level of your goal, you cannot look to the like if you don't start from the first step, you cannot see yourself getting to the final goal. It's something that you have to build day by day, and for me it was more important to do these shows in a way that they got to places like museums, because that for me, an artist to go to a museum is like if you're a lawyer, you want to go to the jury, right? You're not going to be defending a case in the street or under the bridge. Art has its proper place, and its museum, its galleries, where artists can see themselves, and other people see artists with respect. in a place with the proper lighting, with the proper environment, when they with everything that's needed for the artwork to be understood. And for me, that was already a hard task, because projects like this, to put it in a way that a museum understands that it's important for them to have it, that's not an easy task. You have to do a lot of research and put together the essays, curate the shows, work with the artists so they can get the best of them, and then you have to put all that together. So if either you do that or you run an organization, to be able to do both is very hard. It's not, if not impossible. So I decided to just go for the collective.
Now, it sounds like if you wanted to try and do both, you'd also need like staff. I mean,
Exactly.
It's no longer a part or another full-time job for you. It's multiple jobs for multiple people trying to
Exactly.
fundraise, PR, any of that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and it's not impossible to do it, but to jumpstart it, you need capital, and that's the truth. You cannot go with just a dream and make this group of people to keep working together if you don't have the capital. At some point it's gonna break up because people have their needs, they have other goals, and it's really hard to keep a group of people thinking toward the same goal. At some point, there's going to be, different thoughts, different impressions of how it's needed to be done, and it's hard to keep it together. So for me, it was a solution to turn it into a dynamic project that nobody has to be 100% committed. It's something that okay, if we go to do one show, well, let's talk about it, how we're gonna do it, who can do what for the show, and let's focus on that, and then after that we focus on the other one. It's easier that way than to try to put a whole organization to work together. In order to do that, you need capital, and with culture, that right now the funding is not in the best time.
So how do you find members for the collective?
Well, what I really do is, first of all, I believe in gravity. I tend to think as the collective like how you would say, like some kind of organism that has a nucleus, and the nucleus is just running around, and then just people know about it, and they would gravitate to us. They contact us, or they call, or they send messages, or even I have colleagues in Puerto Rico that know other people that when they are coming to Florida, they say, oh, can you contact Angel? Or here, like it happened with Mr. Tirado, that somebody came to me and talked to me about him. So what I always do is, at least for the big collective, is that I always take a priority in achievement, curriculum. What is the contribution of the artist? What is his career? How serious is his work? And what is the importance of what he's been doing for other people to know about it? Okay, there are different levels. We have artists that they are masters, like you could say that they are like living legends, like Mr. Jose Feliciano, and then you have other artists that are mid-career artists that they keep developing, but they are really good artists, and they need projects like this to put their curriculums in a better situation, so their artwork gets to be known and respected and all that. And then there are the emerging artists. And for the emerging artists, it's very important to develop projects for them. Like they are able to participate and grow and feel part of something else. But it's important that they understand that in order to achieve a master level, you have to walk that path. You have you have to put that seed on the ground. You know, it's not like you started today and tomorrow you're a rocket star in the world of art. You know, you have this is a long paced run. This is not like something for you know, yes, you start running now and you just got there and you won the first prize. You know, it's something that needs to be developed, that needs to be it's a process of learning. Even artists that they are 80 years old, they will tell you, you know, I didn't stop learning. I am still learning. I will keep learning until I die, and that's the way I feel it. That's the way I see it. You know, you have young talents that they are really amazing, but it's important that they understand that this is gonna take time. You know, you can be working non-stop in 30, 40 years, and maybe nothing happens, and that's okay. You know why? Because it's not about success. It's not about money. It's not about being in a magazine. It's not being in a cover for a newspaper. Success is what you achieve when you contribute to society, or what you do for yourself, for your life, developing your artwork, your thoughts. You know, it's success. It has a lot of faces, different faces, and it's not the same for everybody. Sometimes you have a very wealthy person, and he's not successful at all. He doesn't feel like that. So as an artist, success is to be able to communicate, to be understood, to be remembered. Like this guy here, Mr. Tirado, he was a professor. He left Puerto Rico. He traveled to Connecticut. He did a lot of teaching there. He did a lot of murals. He may not. Maybe he wasn't able to sell his artworks the way he wanted, but he was successful because he's remembered by a whole community that respected him. So for me, that's success, and it's important for young people to understand that.
So could you talk a little bit about how you got the Tirado?
Yes, Valentin Tirado.
Mr. Tirado's collection?
Yes. As I told you, we was working for a collective that was called La Diaspora, and we showed that. That show was in different places, like a gallery in downtown Orlando City Hall, Ocala Museum, Chicago National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts. So the show was well known, and it attracted a lot of visitors over the different places that we went. And in one of those shows, Mr. Tirado's son, Felipe Andiarena, he went to see the show, and he learned about who we were and everything. So after that, a couple of months later, when we opened this place, the alternative space new concept, he came to me, and he talked to me about his father, and he showed me some small pictures about the artworks of his father, and he brought that painting, the bicycle painting, with him, and we displayed it for a while when the business opened. I had it here, but I didn't know about the whole story of his father. But at the end of 2018, Mr. Felipe contacted me again. He went there to Connecticut where the artworks were storage, and he brought a little painting of a slave, and the certificate of graduation from School of Fine Arts in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So when I saw that, and I saw the little painting, and I saw other pictures that he took in the basement where the artworks were storage, I got really worried that these artworks needed to be removed from the place they were, because they were in danger of suffering some damage. So I told him that I was willing to do the trip and recover the artworks. I set up a budget, and Mr. Felipe agreed. So in January 1st, 2019, I just got into my SUV and drove 19 hours to Willimantic, Connecticut, So when I got there, I had information that Mr. Tirado had done some murals in schools and public places. So I took the time to go there and document all the places that he did public art. And in one of those places, I had the opportunity or the blessing to meet Katina Caban Owen, that was a social worker in the schools there, and she was a personal friend of Mr. Tirado. So she invited me to her home. We document some hours of Mr. Tirado there, and she took me to the other places around the town to see the other artworks. And after that, I went to another town called Newington, Connecticut, where Felipe's sister lives. And in the basement there was like the whole life of Mr. Tirado. He was there for a couple of years after he passed away. So we went there. We packed everything, everything that I could bring with me to Florida. And by January 5, I was back in Florida with all the artworks, and I took some like a couple of months to document everything, put everything on a list, do some research about him, about his background in Puerto Rico, in Connecticut. So to put together the whole story, to be able to do the show that you are seeing right now. That we opening on July 20, I think, July 20.
So had you ever done a project like this before?
Well, in Puerto Rico, I used to do my own art shows. So I have been working with art shows since I was in my 20s. I usually did like personal shows, but here in Florida, I was more into collective, because I understood that the Puerto Rican voice in art needed to be heard. So for me, it was more powerful to put together a collective. It was an easier way to get to the places we wanted, like the museum I have been talking about and stuff. But yes, I have been working with art projects for a while right now. Mr. Tirado's work was another step in that process, because this was a project, like for example, if it is a living artist, I have the opportunity to talk to the artist, know about his feelings or his background, and it's easier to document everything because you have them there to explain themselves. But with this art, it was very interesting because it was more about research, about talking to people that met him, so they can explain through memories and all that. And it was intriguing, to put together that story. I can say I felt like a detective of some sort. and I love history, for me it was something very special, to be able to discover all this story and put it together and share it with all the people that came or keep coming to see the show, and even his family, that they were here the opening night. They were very impressed. They knew they were there when he was creating the artworks, but for them it was a new way to see them. They saw them in a way that they have never seen them before, and it's important because this was a love relative for them. They had a lot of admiration for him, and they have to finally see this in a context that they were impressed, even though they knew about these works. For me, it was a big achievement.
Can you tell us just kind of a brief life history of Mr. Tirado? Because his paintings are going to be in the video, and we have a bunch of photos of his art. So just a kind of brief biography.
Yes. Okay. As I have learned, he was born in 1951 in the town of Ciales, Puerto Rico. That's in the mountains, in the center of the island. He then moved to San Juan, or nearby San Juan, to Cataño, to study in the School of Fine Arts in Old San Juan. He graduated in 1974. By that time, I have a picture that he participated in the installation of a very important mural piece in San Juan, Puerto Rico, with some masters. By that time, one of them was Rafael Rios Rey, that he was a professor in the School of Fine Arts by the time. He graduated, as I said, by 1974, and he left for Windham, Connecticut. As his wife tells me, I think he was recruited to be teacher of an Hispanic population that was developing there since the 1950s. There was a big thread factory there, and they would bring people from Puerto Rico, especially from the town of Juana Diaz, to work in the industry. Mr. Tirado and a couple of young professionals was taken there to be teachers of the children of this population. He established in Willimantic, Connecticut. He was teaching in some of the schools, and then there he met Rosa Tirado. That they became a married couple, and Rosa used to had a daughter and a son, Felipe Andiarena and Enid Andiarena. That they were already they were with Rosa when Mr. Tirado met her, and a couple of years after, the Mr. Kevin Tirado, that is Valentin's son, was born. And as I see, he dedicated himself to raise that family and to teach and to contribute to the town in every possible way. You know, he was all around. He did murals. He was a musician. He was involved into sports. He was collaborator with a boxing gym that I managed to talk to his friend. His name is Juan Perez. They used to work together for the boxing gym. He did a lot of stuff, and he was very respected. Some of his artworks, like this Van der Holyfield painting, got an award into an art show there in a museum. But what I think is that it was a small town. There was not an established market for art, so it must have been some kind of difficult for him, you know, to be able to do all this and not having the opportunity to be able to sell it. And as I know, he worked in a school for I think like 15 years, something like that. His last couple of years are not very clear for me. What I know is that he passed away in 2012. And since then, his family, you know, they remember him. Many people, you know, knew about him, but as I think that there was not many people in touch that had the capacity or the opportunity to bring this together in a way to be recognized as an important Puerto Rican artist. You know, I think it has to do also with demographics. You know, Connecticut is northern part of the United States, and here in Florida, we are closer to Puerto Rico, to everything that's going on right now. A lot of Puerto Ricans moving in. So this is the right time, the right place to be able to pull projects like this, where we discover artists like him, and we can showcase them, and that goes out, the information goes out, and is known in the island, is known here, and other places of the United States.
Going back to you personally, so what is your painting process?
All right. I paint mostly drive by intuition. For those who are not familiar with the term, the intuition, we can call it of the general knowledge that we have from the experience and everything that we have lived, that we can get all that together and use it in a second. You know, when you live by intuition, you guide yourself with everything that you have learned, and you put it in practice in the actuality, in now. And that's the way I paint. You know, when I start working with my painting, I just try to put myself in blank, and I just start working. I don't do previous sketches. I just start doing brush strokes and guiding myself with, I can put like a background music, and like the expression is, abstract expression is mostly they used to do. The thing is that over the process you start discovering yourself, what are your inner preoccupations or thoughts or feelings. You can take them out in the activity of painting, and then you can do a reflection or an introspection of what you're doing. It's like a dialogue between you and the image that you are creating, and it takes like days or even months for it to take shape, and you take it to a level that it fulfills you. Like you feel like you have accomplished something, and you can say, okay, this is a finished work, even though there is nothing finished at all. You know, maybe a couple of years later you can go over it and work on it again. You know, it's a process of dialogue between life, intellect, feeling, society. It's like putting everything together. It's like extracting energy from the environment and using yourself as a tool to recreate it. You know, and that's why sometimes in my paintings I could see like chaotic things or landscaping created or images like they come from the dreams, but it's all that. You know, it's the subconscious at the same time working with the experience, and it's like you put everything together and you just let it go, set it free.
So do you have any like memorable stories of like painting a piece that you'd like to share? Anything that comes to mind?
Okay, let me see. Well, as I was telling you a while ago, I think that one of the most impressive situations that had happened to me with my artwork, it was that I have been working with abstract landscape for a couple of years already. Where the Hurricane Maria situation happened to Puerto Rico, there was a phenomenon that happened that people in Puerto Rico, they had no electricity, there was no communication, so they were closed in their homes, waiting for everything to happen. But us that we were here in the United States, we could see everything in videos happening live. So it was a traumatic experience, because it was like you were seeing it like front row, everything that was going on. And for me, seeing those streets being flooded or the houses coming down, it was something that I have been working with my artwork for years over that topic. You know, I know and feel that we're living in a chaotic society, and I can feel how everything is being, you know, decomposed, like everything is decomposing in our eyes. You know, the environment is suffering, the society is going into decadence. Like we're getting through that path already. You know, it already started, and I have been talking about that for a couple of years in my artworks, and then to see it happening to my people, you know, in front of my eyes, that was really traumatic. and at the same time, it was a big revelation for me. Like we as an artist, we have the capacity to feel, to get in touch with the environment, with everything that is going on, and we have the responsibility to communicate that message so other people see this and understand the reality that we live in. You know, and for me that was one of the most striking stories that I have with my art. And also, you know, I have to say that I have been I have been blessed with the situations that I am going through some kind of harshness in my life, or some certain situations that sometimes I feel I will not be able to overcome. Suddenly, something happens, and somebody reaches to me and purchase some artworks, and I am back on track. So that's one of the biggest affirmations that I have, that I have chosen the right path, being an artist, you know, because it's like God is always there. You know, he's watching you, even though you don't feel him around, but the time when you need him, you need things most, he's already there. You know, and it's like it's some kind of I would say some subliminal or sublime way of salvation that goes on, you know, and it's like, it's an affirmation that you have to keep pushing. You know, you cannot just let everything goes by, or not doing nothing. You know, no, you have to keep pushing, keep that good faith in everything, because some way or the other is gonna come back to you, like karma.
So talking about Maria, how did the hurricane affect you and your family and friends on the island?
Well, thank God I didn't suffer more family casualties, but yes, I have some big personal losses that in one way or the other they are attached to the situation that happened. It was a big learning process, not only for me and my relatives, if not for every Puerto Rican. You know, I want to talk about the positive way that it affected, you know, because suddenly most people understood that if we don't help each other, nobody's going to come to help. And it was a big revelation of how strong we can be when we work together. You know, it was also, I felt very proud to see how people in the island, you know, they struggled, but they overcame that situation, and they were happy in this. Meanwhile, this was happening, you know, there was a big disaster that just happened, but they were able to step up and keep living and keep enjoying the life and help each other. One of the trips that I did to Puerto Rico after the hurricane, I have a friend that we grew up together, and he just told me like man, I have to say, after the hurricane passed and everybody went out, and it was beautiful. He said it was beautiful to see, you know, we people that they didn't used to talk to each other, suddenly they started talking to each other. They put everything on the side, and they just worked together to put everything back on track. So it was a big learning experience for everybody. Like this thing that is happening right now with the government, you know, like is very. It's amazing to see how in difficult situations humans have the capacity to get together and become a stronger force when they decide to do it. You know, there is much more creative power when everybody is working together than when you try to achieve things only by yourself. And that has to do a lot with the collective that we are trying to put together. You know, it's the same premise, it's the same way of thinking, that you can achieve more when you work together. And that's a big example.
So how did you deal with the hurricane hitting the island and not being there to, help friends or family or anything?
It was very, I have to say that I was really frustrated, because you want to do more and you feel that you need to do more, but then you cannot trust the organizations, you cannot trust people that are saying that they are going to help. I have to say, I went to the grocery store to buy something to send it, and then I said, okay, who you gonna deliver it to that can do the work and take it there? And then we live here, we live in a pace that, as I said before, you live month by month, so you don't have the extra capital to go and put your part. So for us, the only thing that we could do is we did an art show here that was called Policronistas, and there was an organization in Puerto Rico that is called Asociación de Artistas Plásticos de Puerto Rico, Puerto Rican Association of Puerto Rican of Artists. What we did is that we did a show here. We asked for a donation of the participating artists, $25. We just, to be sure that the money was gonna go where it was supposed to, I just took the donation from the artists. We did a check, like it was 30 artists, that's the number, this is the amount of money.